Dwayne, hey, it's Jody Demling with CardinalAuthority.com. What have the first 2 days been like for you guys? Just to be able to be back out there with all the questions and everything that's going on. What's it been like to be with the guys?
I think it's great. I mean, I think it's to me, it's therapy. I know it is for me. I just being back around the guys, seeing them smile, being back with your group, and I mean, it's totally different, just the way we have to handle everything. But just to be around them, be on the football field, be in the element that we all love and to be a part of. And it's just fun being back around these kids, man.
Dwayne, Pat Jaggers, ESPN, Louisville. Got a quick question for you in regards to something Coach Satterfield said yesterday. He said one of the biggest things that he'd like to see you guys improve on offensively is yards per loss, like the negative plays. Why do you think you guys struggled with that so much last year, and how difficult is it to nip something like that in the bud when you're plugging in so many new faces, especially when you lose guys like Tyler Haycraft and Mekhi Becton?
Yeah, well, and that's a big focus of ours is tackle for losses and all the sacks that we took last year as well. Something we've got to fix. I think that we've been addressing it all summer, addressing it at practice. And, some of it is first-time staff being around these guys for the first time and just, learning the scheme, learning what we're asking them to do. And sometimes it's guys trying to do too much, and then sometimes, it's just getting the guys to understand, like, look, you don't need to do too much. Just settle down, do what we're asking you to do, and just the more those guys are playing around each other and getting a better feel and better understanding with one another. It's something that obviously we're talking a lot with our guys on. That's one thing that stood out to us that needs to be addressed, and, the guys are doing a good job of it right now.
A quick follow-up to that, Dwayne, is more or less like the fact it seems like you guys definitely not team. You guys do have more depth at the offensive line this year. Do you think that was a big contribution to that last year, just only having like 6 guys that could play at the time?
Not necessarily. It's to me, I think like in everything that you're seeing, tackle for losses, sacks, it's a lot to it as opposed to just looking at those 5 guys up front. It could be something that didn't get communicated, something that didn't get executed on the outside as far as a route, quarterback's waiting for something. So it's a lot of factors that play into it. Now the thing about it is, take that part out of it, you want more depth, just period. And so you want to be able to play more guys, have more guys in the rotation that you can play with. I think so. Right now, what we're trying to work with, we'd like to get up to that number 7, maybe that 8th guy that we feel like we could rotate up front and not lose a beat. And so that's something that, so that's usually something in spring ball you're working at. You're trying to develop your depth chart. Getting guys ready for some of those roles. Obviously, we didn't get to do that, and so now we're having to try to do that in the fall as well. And so it's trying to see what these guys can, give them a lot of information, see what they can go out and execute. And hopefully when it's all said and done, we have 7, 8 guys that we feel pretty good with up front.
Thanks, Coach.
Dwayne Cameron with the Courier. Dwayne Cameron with the Courier Journal. You mentioned the depth you had. Obviously, I mean, you probably think you have 7 guys. You have the 5 starters and then Cam and Trevor who are newcomers. Just how close do you feel like you are to finding that 8th that 8th guy like you were mentioning?
I think it's not too far off. I think that, the more opportunities we get to put these guys in game-like situations where the speed is a little bit faster than practices, I think that tells us a lot, and if the guys are going to be ready. And so when we get to these scrimmages that will be upcoming, those will be big days for us, especially for those guys that are running with those 2s, just seeing if, these guys are going to be able to handle this. And so, but I feel like, we're close to it. We just got to keep hammering away and keep giving these guys information and seeing one thing we're doing this year. We're a lot faster as far as our installs. We're loading the guys up a lot more from the get-go, just to kind of see their retention and to see how they are able to go out and execute what we're putting on them. And so it's they've been doing a really good job with it. We've been very pleased with it. But one thing that we've always wanted to lay our hat on is just, the effort that we play with. And regardless of how much we're trying to put on the guys, just making sure the effort's there that we are looking for and that we need.
Coach, this is Kent Taylor from Wave TV. UConn canceled football for this season earlier this morning. I don't know if you knew that or not, but kind of what's your initial reaction when you hear that? Does that scare you a little bit that a school, I mean, they're not in a conference, so it's not exactly like you all, but, the biggest school kind of so far to actually cancel a season?
I think it's very it's unfortunate for sure. You're very sad for the program and also for those players, those coaches, because I know what it means. All I can do is speak from our experience as far as like what it has meant just to be back on the field with these guys, to be in a meeting room with these guys, seeing them, physically seeing them again. And so to me, that's been very, very good for me. It's been good for me, really good. And I think it's been good for the kids. And so now you're getting that taken away. I think it's very, very unfortunate. I hate to hear that. I hate to see it. And, I just hope that my hope is that everybody, all of us, just can do our part. And whatever it is, just to make sure that we can continue going forward with progress.
Coach, this is Jerry Tipton with the Herald Leader in Lexington. I'm wondering with Mikhail and Javian and Tutu, how they appear at this stage of this, of workouts compared to a year ago at this time.
I think that the big thing that, you lose out, we lost out on a lot of training. I think Coach Mike Siriano and his staff, they do a great job with conditioning, with the weight room. And so you miss that aspect of it. And so, but I think like a lot of the guys, like especially some of the guys that got a lot of snaps under their belts, when they were away for quarantine, they got the maturity where they made sure that they were doing the things necessary to stay in shape. And so a lot of those guys like a Tutu, a Dez, Mikhail, they came back. It's like they really haven't missed much of a beat, And so, but, some of the other guys that don't, they haven't had that type of experience yet. They're not as in good shape, just because you missed out on so many weeks of it. And so, but some of the guys that we have here, the names that you mentioned, I think they did a really good job during the time that we were away from each other and doing the things necessary to, keep the focus on the season, focus on them as an individual and doing their part to make sure when we got started back that they were in great shape.
Coach, this is Gary.
Michael McCammon from Cardinal Authority. You had a 3 redshirt freshmen last year. You had Joshua Black, Jackson Gregory, Zach Williamson. How would you describe their progress from year 1 to year 2?
It's going pretty well. I think with offensive linemen in general, you're going to get better as an offensive lineman the older you get. You're going to be more physically mature, more mentally mature. And so to me, I just think that, the older you get, the longer you've been in a system, the better off you're going to be. You know what the expectation is. You feel more comfortable in a scheme. And I think those guys, you see that, they've done a good job in the weight room with Coach Mike Siriano, putting the right weight on, gaining their strength. Because a game up front, it means a lot to have that maturity, both mentally and physically, and also to have that strength up front. And I think Coach Mike has done a good job with those guys. But in these first 2 practices, those guys are being put in some roles in which we're seeing right away, are they going to be ready to compete for, like we've been talking about, that 7th, 8th spot, and just kind of see how that plays out.
Coach, hey, it's Jody again. You mentioned the 7th and 8th spot in the competition. I know that's important to get that spot. How important is it to get a backup center, though? Because you've got a lot of guys that you could put there How important is it to get that position nailed down?
It's huge. I mean, before any snap on offense, it goes through the center. And I tell guys that play that position, like to me, I think it's one of the most important positions on the field. Ask that guy to do from a mental standpoint, we put a ton on the kid. And so they got to handle a lot mentally, but also you got to be able to snap the football and get the play started. And from an athletic standpoint, what we ask that guy to do, it puts a lot on them. Those guys are extremely athletic for us, but you can't have enough guys that can snap a football and get a play started for you. And so that's a position that, the thing about it, Robbie Bell has been somebody that has snapped the football and played center before, who's going into there, who's going to be starting at right guard for us. So that gives you some flexibility there as well if something did happen to Cole. But at the same time, we got to find that backup center. That's one thing about camp that we definitely have to come out of camp knowing who that backup center will be this year.
Coach Fred Calgill with WLKY, tying into the UConn question and also what happened with the Pac-12 a few days ago, with players threatening to opt out and not playing camp or games because of the virus if they're not some assurances. Are you getting any feedback from your players, how they feel, any sense of that they feel safe, that they're not being put in the line of fire unnecessarily?
I haven't. And one thing I try to do with my guys every night when we start our meetings, I was like, hey, guys, do we need to talk about it? Everybody feel good? Is everybody in a good – it's just different right now, and it's players they have a voice that really, if you think about it, they never had a voice as strong as they've had now. And us as coaches and trying to be leaders of these men, it's our job to make sure that we're listening to these guys. And that's something that you get around our program. It's a hands-on approach. But one thing I'm pretty sure you ask anybody in our program, they know each and every one of us as coaches, we care about these guys and their safety. That's first and foremost with us. And because to me, if you don't have that, and that's the first thing when we got here as a program, it's showing these guys we care about them, that we love them. Because to me, what we ask guys to do on the football field, it's hard. And if you're a player and you don't feel like coaches, if they don't feel like I truly care for them and love them, then they're not going to give me everything I'm asking for on that field. So I think that kind of ties into it as well. But, it's something that we haven't had. I know for myself, I haven't had any experience with yet so far. I'm not saying it won't happen, but we haven't had it thus far.
Coach, this is Derek Gray from the AT. How much have you had to tweak your scheme for guys like McHale and Tutu, your blocking scheme? How has that come along?
We haven't had to tweak anything as far as like with, the thing about it is you want to make sure that you identify your playmakers and you're doing as much as you can to make sure the ball is in their hands. And we're very fortunate here. We got some skilled guys that can do a lot when the ball is in their hands. And so for us, it's identifying those guys and also making sure that we're trying to spread that wealth around and let those guys get those touches. And within our offense, we have the flexibility to where we can do that, which is the great thing about it.
Coach Pat Jaggers here once again of ESPN Louisville. A name you guys really talked about in fall camp last year that kind of caught everybody off guard was Javian Hawkins. And then, the rest was history. He had this incredible year last year. Even though it's very early on in camp, obviously only two days thus far, but throughout spring and the off season, is there anybody that to this point has just absolutely just stood out to you that you didn't expect, or maybe somebody that we're not used to hearing their name?
Yeah, well, I'd say the guy that really stood out to me yesterday in our first practice was Ian Pfeiffer. I think that he looked extremely good out there. He looked good at running routes. He looked good at catching the football. And obviously what we asked him to do from a blocking standpoint, he looked really, really good. And so, the unfortunate part about that question, we've been away from our guys for so long. And but he was a guy in that first practice that you're like, man, he did a really good job. And so I felt he's somebody that definitely stood out in day one as far as a name that you might not have heard of that much.
We'll take one more for Coach Ledford.
Hey, Dwayne,
Coach, this is
this
Matt
Cameron
McGath
from
from
Cherry
Sports
Journal.
Illustrated. I know it's only 2 days into practice, but how has the play out at the tackles looked so far with Renato, Adonis, Cam, and Trevor?
It's coming around well. Cam's got a lot of starts underneath him. He's a very experienced player that has that's something that's hard to replicate in practice. Once you got those snaps underneath your belt, it makes you a better player. And so you can tell that with Cam and his play. I think Renato has done a great job of understanding what we're wanting, what we need at that position. Although he's still young, he's doing a great job. He's had a really good first 2 practices. And so, and I told the guys from the get-go, like this year, all throughout camp, we're going to be rotating guys at numerous positions, shuffling guys around just to make sure that we're trying to put the 5 best guys out there that we can find. And, and from that also to develop our depth chart. And so to me, I think both of those guys have done a really good job. And that's something I'm very excited for, is kind of see some of these position battles that we're going to be having going through camp with.
Robbie, Fred Calgill with WLKY here in Louisville. Some thoughts about what's going on with the virus, and is it out there in the distance for you guys? Do you think about it every day with wearing the masks and all that? The Pac-12, a lot of players are ready to opt out. UConn just canceled its football season. How do you guys deal with all of these things?
Obviously, like, you think about it, it's in the sports news, it's in the regular news, and our entire camp schedule is built around trying to limit contact as much as you can playing football and having a camp. So, like, obviously you're going to think about it, going to practice, wearing a mask while you're practicing stuff. But the thing that we've kind of focused on is just like trying to trust. We're trusting in our trainers, Matt, our healthcare staff, and everything. Just that the protocols they're putting in place are what they believe is best for us and what's best for us. And so that's all we can do, is just trust in that, and then try to go about our business as regularly as we can.
Robbie, this is Jerry Tipton with the Herald Leader in Lexington. I'm wondering, on offense, with so many guys coming back from a really productive offense last year, what sort of expectation do you have of what you guys can do if there is a season?
The expectation that we kind of have for ourselves, and what we've been talking about, is that every game we're going to be the best unit on the field. That's our goal. Our goal is to every single week that we get to play a game, we're going to go out there and we're going to know there's not a defense that's better than us. There's not that we're going to be better than our best beats their best every day. That's going to be our mindset, and that's what we're going to strive for.
How realistic is that, do you think?
I think it's realistic. As good as we were last year, I feel like we're clicking just as well, if not even more. And it's only the second day of camp. When we got half our spring ball practices, when we're 2 days into camp, and I feel like we're just as good, if not better, than we were in the bowl game at the end of last season when we were at our best last year. So I think we've continued to progress and grow throughout this weird off season and everything, to where we're still better than where we were back in March when we finished spring ball. I think we're better than we were then. And after just these first 2 days, like, I'm even more excited for the future practices, just to see, like, once we get pads on, like, just see us keep clicking and doing well and everything. So I think it's a very real goal and expectation for us to have for ourselves.
Robbie, Cameron with the Courier Journal. Obviously, you 2 newcomers in Cam and Trevor. Just kind of what have you seen from them? I know it's only 2 days into camp, but from walkthroughs and everything else, just what have been your impressions of them so far?
Trevor, he's uber athletic. He's really athletic. He's able to, even when he's out of position, sometimes he's able to realize it and get himself back into position, even if he does mess up, just because of how athletic he is. And then Cam has 33 some odd starts. Like, he has the most starts on the team since he's transferred here. Now, like, he's played a lot of football, so he's a real smart player. He knows the feel when you're able to feel defenses shifting where pressures and stuff. It's very obvious just in these two practices that like he's got that game experience where you can kind of feel things out and all that. I think it's very important when you're going into a season and everything is having that experience and be able to feel those types of things.
Robbie Hayes, Jody Demling with Cardinal Authority. What Coach Ledford talked about the backup center position behind Cole, and he mentioned obviously you played center for a while at the beginning of your career. What do you see with that position? Do you think you could get forced into that, or I guess how many other guys have been even working in there?
Obviously Cole's returning his true senior year. He's starter right now. He's been doing really well, playing it all. He's played a bunch of games at center. Right now, I think. I'm not hoping that I get put into that position, because if that happens, that means other things have gone wrong. Players have gotten hurt something. Then knock on wood, I don't want any of that happening. But I know I'm fully prepared if I need to. Like, I know the offense well enough. I know I can snap. I can go in and fast. But I think right now is we're really focusing on building that depth, that position with guys like Josh, Jackson, and Austin. Is that so we don't have to shift up the entire offensive line. Like, if one person goes down, that way we don't have to make a completely new makeshift offensive line. We can just kind of plug one new person in. I think that's the goal, and that's the whole idea behind camp, is building that depth where you can just do that.
Hey, Cole, Cameron, again, just with you, I mean, Robbie, sorry, I don't know why I called you Cole. I was mentioning Cole. With you, Cole, and Caleb all back, obviously, just what has this offense been like, not this off, but this off season been like for the three of you, knowing you guys are going to have to take another leadership role, or a bigger leadership role this season for the line?
So I mean, obviously it's been a big thing that like we've talked about. It's just that you had guys 6'9", 400 pounds, crazy athletic, number 11 pick Makai, and then you had fifth-year senior Tyler. Like, those were the kind of established leaders of the group, and it's been interesting watching Cole, really Caleb, and myself kind of like we're speaking up more, and not just like a playing around notion, but more in like a leadership, trying to lead and like coach the young guys and the rest of the unit. So. It's been really interesting. Something that I kind of talked about in past interviews is when we had those accountability groups, like we were kind of the guys that had to like get the offensive line, the rest of the young guys kind of like in line, talking to show them what we're doing. This is what you should be doing, type thing. And so it's been really interesting.
Any further questions?
Robbie. Yeah, one more for you, Robbie. Just you guys are coming in with a little bit more depth on the offensive line than you did last year. Does that change your mindset? I imagine I don't know if it eases or relaxes you guys a little bit more, but just what does that do for you guys going into camp?
I think it's very interesting. So last year, obviously, essentially our entire second offensive line was just true freshmen. And we tried to save their red shirts as much as possible. That's why most of them, they appeared in 4 games and they didn't play after those 4 games. Like, we were trying to save their red shirts as much as we could. So it's nice knowing that if something does happen, it's kind of back to that idea of it allows us to plug and play rather than having to, if something happens to somebody, do a complete makeshift brand new offensive line. Because we're not afraid of like burning people's red shirts, or not, like we're able to just go ahead, put them in, trust them, they have you under their belt, they know what they're doing, how to do it. And so it allows you to do more of that plug and play, and just worry about like worst case scenario things if people do go down or whatever happens. So it's nice. Obviously, as a starter, you still don't want to go out. You want to be in and score as much as possible. But if need be, the twos are allowed to get in. If we're up enough points, somebody gets hurt, you're able to plug a second guy in. So it's good.
Robbie Hayes, Jody again. You mentioned earlier that about everything being different in the camp being set up around social distancing and things like that. What's it been like out there the first 2 days in a fall camp with people with masks on, with everything else that's going on? What's it been like for you guys as players?
Practices and all have been honestly, I don't think they've been too terribly different than what we've done in past years and everything with practice. The only difference really is just that we've been forced to wear masks and all, and then when we do take water breaks or something, like we have to kind of keep our distance from each other. We're not allowed to like group up and take our mask off or whatever. Biggest difference is really so during camp you're here from early in the morning to late at night, but normally in a normal camp you get a good amount of like break times throughout the day during that day. And now like our schedule's kind of condensed to where we're not getting many breaks throughout the day, but we're getting done earlier than we normally ever would. So like that's kind of the biggest difference is the fact that we're not getting these breaks like, oh, you get an hour here, you get 45 minutes, you get an hour and a half here. It's okay, you have 30 minutes and then we got to be here. You have 15, 20 minutes, you got to be here. Like it's more of a faster paced schedule that allows us to finish earlier in the day. So that's just been the biggest difference camp wise, honestly.
Robbie, Jerry Tipton again. How do you think McHale and Tutu and Hawkins can be better players this season?
I think it's kind of the same as it is for any player at any position on our team right now. It's just like you can always know your assignments. You can always have better technique. You can always have to do those little things better. And so for them, whether it's running a specific route better, whether it's taking a better angle out of the backfield on a run, whether it's releasing the ball better on a throw, like I think the way that they improve is the same as whether it's me or anybody else on the offensive line. Like it's working on those little things where we can just keep getting better at those things, and that will lead to bigger results for everybody.
Any further questions? All right, hearing none, that will conclude us for today. Robbie, thanks for taking the time to join us, and thanks to all the media on here with us today.